afternoon, everyone. Today we are going to be talking about another lesson of writing in Birmingham level, and this is going to be pretty much about the effect essay as a sequel to our previous lesson, which we talked about essays, the basics of organization, when we dig deeper into essay organization and stuff. So this is going to be pretty much the topic of our today's lesson. As the topic of today's lesson, we're going to be discussing how effect essay is going to be structured well in terms of composition, relevance, and cohesion, and what we expect our students, to deliver in terms of the assessments and examinations they're involved in. So let's see what an effect essay, literally means in terms of definition. As you can probably see, an effect essay needs to or seeks to investigate the effects of an issue or phenomenon on variables or on one specific variable. Different questions, different factors, that the question that might ask you different things in terms of, they're tapping into investigating the effects of a phenomenon. These are some sample questions that you can probably face when you are required to write an effect essay. So, for example, what are the effects of climate change? How does lack of schooling affect individuals? Or, in what ways does unemployment impact people? And what are the influences of social media on teenagers? As you can probably see here, I have kind of highlighted, these keywords in these questions. They all kind of refer to the effect or consequence of an action, either an action or a process, a phenomenon under study, under scrutiny. So you can see the keywords like effect, which is the verb of effect, impact, and influence, or some, references, add consequences, for example, to this list. They all refer to some extent to the effects of a phenomenon under study. So, you are now familiar with different types of questions that you might be asked on an exam in order to write an effect composition. So, let's see the concept. Let's figure out what the concept of an effect essay is first. So the first time when we had a basic introduction of the essay organization, we started with cause essay. So a lot of students I have seen, asking me this question: what difference is between a cause or an effect paragraph or essay? So the relationship is quite, blurred in terms of organization or in terms of conceptualization. So some students cannot figure out these boundaries between effects and causes, when they are asked to write a composition about it. So I've given here an example. For example, cause and effect often form a linear relationship. What does that mean? A linear relationship means something happens first as the cause of an action, then it is followed by the effect of the action. So, in this example here, you can see something causes a phenomenon to happen. And this phenomenon, when it happens, it here, builds a kind of cohesion. So it refers back to this phenomenon here. So when it happens, it leads to another thing. As you can probably figure here, this something is the cause of that action, and this another thing here refers to the effect of it. For example, you might say that a coronavirus, or for example COVID-19, was caused by something. For example, it got out of a market, for example, in Wuhan, China, and then there are effects that we're experiencing right now. So this is kind of conceptualizing the difference between cause and effect. So, here, as an example, COVID-19 got out of Wuhan, China, and infected a lot of people. So, the cause was that it got out of Wuhan, and it affected a lot of people. So, in the first place, there was the cause. Then, what we have here is the COVID-19 virus, and people suffer from psychological or economic issues. these two items here, as you can probably see, they form the effect of something happening. Or something happened first, then we are experiencing the effects here. So, to be familiar with the topic of our today's lesson, I've, given it a try to come up with the idea of this COVID-19 that we're experiencing these days. So, let's say the writer or the examiner asks us to write an effect essay about the effects of COVID-19, for example, on society. You have to be careful about how the writer limits, for example, the question. For example, you might say the effects of something on society, the effects of something on economies, effects of something. If there are no limitations imposed on the question, then you are free to write almost about any type of effect related to the subject under study. So here, we're going to be tapping into the effects of COVID-19 into, for example, society. Social, psychological, and economic properties or attributes, something like that I have come up with as the brainstorming stage, which is the very first stage of any composition that you are trying to write. So, as you can probably remember, we were supposed to start our introduction with a hook and then proceed with a thesis statement, which is the very important, the most important part of your organization, since it gives the reader a kind of clue as the main idea of your whole essay. So I've tried to, separate them with highlighting colors. So society is currently confronted with a global crisis unlike any in the recent 100 years of its history, one that is killing individuals, spreading human suffering, and devastating people's lives. However, this is much more than a health problem. So my hook, or the hook I have written here, ends here, and then I'm going to be proceeding to the next part of the introduction, which is the thesis statement. Pay attention here. The coronavirus disease, or COVID-19, which has been characterized as a pandemic by the World Health Organization, or WHO, is attacking our lives at their core in psychological, economic, and social ways. So you see these three items that I have listed here at the end of my thesis statement. They form the blueprinting of my essay. So further, when I'm writing my body paragraphs, I'm going to elaborate on these three items or these three topics separately, developed in one body paragraph. So one body paragraph I'm going to, for example, dedicate to psychological issues, another one to economic, and another one to social properties. So I have tried to follow this introduction into a body paragraph. So the first thing that the first property or the first effect, say, for COVID-19, which I'm going to elaborate on, is, as you can probably see, the keyword here in the first sentence, which is called the topic sentence, as you're familiar with, is the economic one. So I'm going to be reading while it is still challenging to pin down the exact economic damages that COVID-19 would leave us with, there is a general agreement among people that it will have a severe negative influence on the global economy. So this very first sentence is my topic sentence. I'm going to further elaborate on this topic sentence in the rest or remainder of my body paragraph. As the pandemic continues, governments extend lockdown periods in order to combat further spread of the virus. As a result, this would put jobs at risk for families that rely on these channels as their main source of income. Further, industries would also experience the same lockdown and suffer economically. This might also affect the whole country as the amount of production decreases. So, what is most interesting here is that the topic sentence again, leaves us with a clue, as this is a part of an effect essay. So, because you can probably see, economic damages is one clue, so it's one consequence, and here you can see the keyword influence here. It acts as a synonym to effect. So whenever you see these words, they are probably leaving you with a clue as you are facing an effect type of paragraph or an effect type of essay. So I have tried to look or dig deeper for example, this paragraph and, look at it from a cohesion perspective, as we discussed it in previous lesson, as you remember. So these words that you see in red, they are called linkers. These linkers, show different properties, different characteristics. For example, if you look at the first one, while here, it shows a contrast because the sentence, is divided into two chunks. And the first chunk, shows kind of contrast with the following one here. And here, as a result, as you can see, this as a result, is commonly used in effect essays because, it forms a kind of leading factor to an effect type of thing. So, another one I have used here, further, still, and again, it shows an addition. So, these ones, show a kind of cohesion or say, for example, a glue-like type of essay that I have tried to connect ideas with one another using these linkers or cohesive ties. The other color in blue, you can see these words are in blue. This form of cohesion is called referencing. It's a type of grammatical cohesion that I have talked about in the previous lesson. So, as you can probably see, these and there in this line refer back to families. The one this here, for example, this refers back to this lockdown situation. It's a process, actually. And then another one in the last line, this might also affect the whole country. What might affect the whole country? So you can see it still, and again, refers back to the same lockdown situation. So, from a grammatical cohesion perspective, we have analyzed this paragraph. Let's proceed to the next one. So, I want you to take a look and figure out what kind of effect I'm trying to investigate in this body paragraph. I'm going to give you a couple of seconds. So, in the first line, or in the first sentence, as the topic sentence of my body paragraph, you can see this keyword, psychological problems. COVID-19 may also lead to some certain psychological problems. So, question is, this lead to is another keyword to pinpoint or to illustrate or to show another type of effect. And the psychological is the keyword to convey the main idea of my paragraph here. Here, to support my topic sentence, I have used an example. For example, during lockdowns, people tend to stay home for long hours, and this would consequently affect their mood negatively. Feelings of stress, anxiety, and depression are probably attached to quarantine times. So, again, I have highlighted, the linkers in red, and the referencing cohesion in blue. So the question is, what does this reference here, refer back to? As you can probably see, this here refers to a process. Previously stated in the previous sentence, which is the lockdown again. Affect their mood. This there is a possessive adjective. It's still another type of referencing strategy, and it, kind of refers back to people in its previous sentence. So, you can see how cohesion it still works or is still in play within writing an effect essay. So, let's move to our third paragraph, third body paragraph here. As you can see probably the topic sentence, negative social impacts are probably another byproduct of this disease, physical isolation that people need to exercise during such times, pushes them to spend too much time on social media. This process would consequently end in poor social skills and make people's social circles shrink, which is probably reduced in size as a synonym over time. There are many ways to counteract these negative effects though. So, still it follows the same conventions of writing an effect essay, but thing is here, I have highlighted the last sentence for a specific reason. As you can probably see, this last sentence doesn't belong here. You know, a lot of students have tried these types of, writing or strategies when it comes to writing effects. Through writing paragraphs or essays. But when there's irrelevance of the topic, for example, the topic asks you to write about the effects of COVID-19 on society, and you're writing about the solutions, for example, or the counteracting measures, for example, to mitigate its effects. So it's not relevant to our topic. When you're writing something irrelevant, you're going to be, get a final, lower mark in terms of the grading stuff. So it's best to avoid this. Whatever the question asks you to do, you have to stick to the point and proceed as it is. So you're not coming up with different ideas that are not relevant or related to our topic. So, and the last part, which is the conclusion, as you probably know the formula for a conclusion we have talked about previously in our previous lessons, rewarded thesis statement is the most important part of it. What does it mean? It means that you're going to write the thesis statement again using different words or different chunks and structures. It's not a bad idea actually to add a summary of the points made in your body paragraphs. But it has to be a summary, and then a finisher or a clincher, something that you want to leave the reader to reflect upon when finishing your essay, something that the reader would understand and figure out that your essay is going to end. Let me read this part for you. A linker for conclusive, for example, signal, here I have used all in all. All in all, the impacts of COVID-19 are not limited to one single category, but include a range of social, psychological, and economic factors. This is my rewarded thesis statement. I have stated my thesis in different wordings. And, as we continue, although this might seem inevitable in the first place, there are certain strategies to help communities recover from such harms. So this is my finisher actually. I have left this second part out. It's optional actually. I have used a finisher to signal the reader that this is the end of my essay, and the reader has something to think about, to reflect on when he or she finds himself at the end of my effect essay. So this was our lesson for the effect, organization of an essay. So I hope you all enjoyed today's lesson. You can always, refer back to the presentations that we have done so far about the organizations, the basic organizations of essays or the cause essays, to help you proceed with the basic rhetoric structure of writing an effect essay. They're pretty much interconnected. They kind of follow the same structure. So I hope you enjoyed it all together. So I wish you a very good day and see you soon. Thank you so much.